again, I think you have to kind of like be already in, like have that kind of pretty boy genetics
Yes.
to then lean into
agree.
that.
Yes.
Because I think you might kind of come across as try hard if you didn't have that, but then you try to kind of mimic that style.
Hey guys, welcome to the Emily and Todd Podcast. Today we're talking about niche dating. Before we get started, please remember to like and comment under this video as it does really help with the YouTube algorithm. So Todd, niche dating. Do you think that a lot of guys know about this right now in the dating market? Because we might need to define it.
Well, niche dating is saying that you're going to have a specific, first of all, kind of look about you that's going to attract a certain type of woman that is attracted to that specific look. And then the second part is not so much about your looks, but about what your activities, interests, hobbies are that kind of fit into that niche, and potentially being able to meet other people, specifically women, through those avenues.
Right. I feel like there's a lot of like the average woman and the average guy and kind of like what average people are into. Mm-hmm. And then there's these little subgroups of like really specific things that people are into, whether it's a certain look, you know, which you can tell pretty much right away when somebody's into something like that. Mm-hmm. Or it's just like a specific hobby that they're really into that you might not be able to tell just by looking at somebody. Mm-hmm. But in either case, like it's so unique that that person that's in that unique interest is going to probably be more interested in somebody else that has that same interest.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, there'll be a connection right away because of the fact that there's that, you know, kind of unspoken bond.
Yeah.
Because of the fact that they share that. And I mean, think about that just like in the car world, for example. Like there's this whole kind of thing with people who drive Jeeps.
Yeah.
Do you know about that?
Or Subarus.
Okay, yeah, or Subarus.
Subs.
But, you know, it's something that like people can kind of connect and identify because they have that love for that specific car.
Yeah. I can see that. And especially when it's hard to find somebody that is also interested in that thing and you're at all like attracted to them. Mm-hmm. And even if you're not sure, like we've talked a lot about a woman's category, that maybe category when she's first meeting a man, she's not sure if it's a yes or a no at this point. And so that is something that might put you over the edge for her. Mm-hmm. You know, she might really become more interested if you're kind of coming to her with that unique interest that she finds rare, you know, to find in another person.
Yes, exactly. And so I think the first thing we have to kind of do is talk about kind of the three groups of guys and, you know, kind of revisit the looks maxing piece first and then kind of talk about how that relates to the niche maxing.
Yeah, so in general, right? So if you're a guy out there, I think our audience is mostly age 25 to 35. Mm-hmm. But really within any age group, if you're struggling with dating right now and you're not having success, what do you think is the first thing that guy should do?
Yeah, I think the first thing every guy should do, regardless, even if they're not in the dating market, is looks maxing, because studies have shown that the better that you look or the better that you present yourself, that people treat you better.
Yeah.
And generally speaking. So, of course, that's going to cross over into the dating world in 2023. And I just think that there's still a huge amount of guys that are not doing this. Mm-hmm. You know, because for most of human history, guys really didn't need to do this. It was kind of, you know, there was always kind of a subgroup of guys that probably are into this to a certain degree, but that was mostly on women. Mm-hmm. And now we've got to this place in time where it's switched over and it's really just as important for men as it is for women. And I know guys hate to hear that, but you know, that's the reality right now. And again, I'm not saying, you know, like go to the extents of makeup or things like that.
Yeah.
Maybe that works for certain individuals, but I'm just saying, like, the first thing is saying, if you're a guy who is overweight, like you have to lose weight if you want to play in the dating game. Like, because if you're a guy who's overweight right now, that automatically is going to put you into that kind of third category of men. And those guys are invisible in the West to women, pretty much.
Yeah. I totally agree with what you're saying. I mean, I think that's very true that in the past that men didn't really need to focus on looks maxing. It wasn't as necessary. They primarily focused on being a good provider because that's what women sought. And now things have really changed, and there's a lot of women out there, you know, making their own money, and they don't necessarily look just for the provider. They also want somebody that they are attracted to and somebody that they feel is like emotionally intelligent too, you know, and more at their level. And I think that we can't disconnect the two, like the looks maxing with the outward appearance and what it does internally too.
Absolutely.
It can sound like it's just about looks, but like we know, and we've talked about it before on the show, how that really does change you as a person, and it improves you as a person in many ways.
Absolutely. Well, it's going to make you feel more confident, and it's sending the messaging to the women that you're a guy who takes care of himself. And if you can take care of yourself, you can take care of her.
Absolutely.
And, you know, and that goes also to his apartment or his car or whatever, as far as it doesn't have to be expensive. It just has to be clean.
Yes.
And, you know, it's really kind of sad that I have to say this, but the reality is that there's a lot of guys who aren't doing this, that if they did do this, it would give them a much better chance.
Yes.
To even, you know, like, for example, I think there's some guys who could looks max from potentially like a 4 to an 8 if they were really overweight. And, you know, let's say they hadn't done anything. You could have that significant of a difference.
I believe that.
Do you know what I mean? And so it's something where that's, I think, the first thing all guys have to do. I would even argue that, you know, the kind of Chads, the upper level, have to do that. It's just that they have the great genetics to start with, so it's easier. But at the same time, if he's slovenly and maybe he has, I don't know, greasy hair and he doesn't shower on a regular basis or things like that, that's going to work against him.
Yeah.
But I think part of what makes it a Chad is the fact that they are doing this.
Yeah, they're grooming themselves.
Absolutely.
For sure. And they're working on their hygiene. They're just
and their
at another
style
level.
and everything.
Yeah. I mean, it's kind of like how all women are nowadays. I mean, women have needed in the past, and I think even now still, they've become professionals at improving their looks. Like, and they eat it up, the information. Like, there's so many videos, like makeup videos.
Yeah.
Look at like how big some of the makeup artists get on social media and how much of a following they have.
Yeah.
It's crazy. But
the difference, though, is for guys, I think, because especially they don't wear makeup, generally speaking, that we're talking about both soft looks maxing and hard looks maxing, where what you were just describing would be soft looks maxing. So you could have a really overweight woman who does a great job with her makeup and her hair and dresses well, things like that. But if she's super obese, it's something that you could tell she's not working on that area of her life.
True.
And so, you know, the messaging right now is that you don't really need to. But for guys, I'm telling you, the message is you have to work on that. If you want any shot at all, you have to work on that.
Yeah. I mean, we can get into depth about that. We know why women don't necessarily need to work on some of the stuff that's harder to do, like getting in shape.
Yeah.
And they can do more of just the soft looks maxing because they have so many options.
Exactly.
But I agree with you that men, they really do need to focus on the things that are really hard looks maxing and that take a while and a lot of work to do.
Yes, exactly. And I think just a lot of guys, you know, it's not their fault because they probably were raised in a way that they weren't taught these skills and they weren't taught to value them. And so it's something that now maybe they're into their 20s and there's just a lot of basic skills to have that, you know. So like a small example, if you walked into a guy's apartment and let's say he did have a bed with a frame, but it wasn't made and it was and there's clothes all over, that type of thing. I can imagine for a woman that's going to be a huge turnoff.
Yeah.
If you even got to that point. Do you know what I mean?
It's not good. I don't think that it would matter as much if he is very attractive. This is the tricky part, right? Like, I think that if she's already really into him because she's super attracted to him, she'll let that bend.
I
but
agree.
that means that, like, if you are not in that first group as a man, and you're not like super attractive, you're not this quote unquote Chad.
What's the odds though that a guy who's a Chad and his looks maxed will then have an apartment that's in disarray?
Yeah, I think
mean?
if he's in college, because I think that's probably just because everyone else is that way. And if he has like a bunch of roommates, or if he's like in a fraternity, then for sure that might be more at play.
Sure. But I don't disagree with that. But if it's one of those things where it's a guy who's average, or definitely below average, it's something that you have to start off with before you even start talking about niches. Like, people have to take this information in and utilize it, and that means soft looks maxing and hard looks maxing. Saying, there's some things that are going to take a lot of time to do, and then there's some things that you can do right away.
I think especially when it comes to your vehicle, because like she will see that probably at the first date. Maybe you're not picking her up, but you're meeting at the same place, and she's probably going to see your vehicle. So if it looks really messy from the outside, or it's like filthy dirty, which happens easily depending on where you live. If it snows, it's going to probably get filthy dirty. So like it doesn't take much.
But go to the car wash before you go on a date.
Yeah, it doesn't take much to just go and do that, to think about that. Because it's not like she's going to look at your vehicle and be like, oh, he really keeps his stuff clean. But if you don't, she's going to look at your vehicle and she's going to think, ooh, I don't know.
Exactly.
One more reason that I might back down from this guy.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And so that's the kind of first thing to do. So I think all guys, no matter kind of where you are in the kind of three basic categories, the kind of high, mid, or low, they have to kind of do that. And then we have to say, okay, what's the next step? So let's say you're a guy and you've done that. And so you're as maxed out as you can be, possibly. Now we kind of talk about niches.
Yeah.
And so let's break down that with the kind of two different categories. The first one would be your looks or how you present yourself. And the second one would be kind of the activities that you participate in and hobbies, or, those type of things. So let's talk about like kind of some of the different kind of looks that are out there that are kind of these niches. And, we can kind of discuss that first, and then we can kind of go into the activities.
Yeah. So the first one that comes to mind, because it's sort of the Gen Z look right now, is the pretty boy look.
Yeah. Sure.
That's a niche in its own, because it's mostly Gen Z guys, and it takes a specific type. Like you have to have the long hair, right? Like there's some genetic components of it that will be required in order to even try to be in this niche.
Yeah. Well, first of all, I think it's pretty much exclusively in the young guys.
Young, yes.
And although there are like some older guys that are kind of pretty boys, but that's kind of models or actors,
right?
Or someone like that.
Yeah.
But what we're kind of referring to is, kind of the typical like TikTok look, for the young guys, and that's something where that's really in right now. But again, I would preface that as, if you're overweight, like you can't really kind of be a pretty boy. It really doesn't kind of go hand in hand.
That's true.
So like that kind of look is somebody who is probably much, much thinner and doesn't probably have a lot of muscle mass. You can, but it's something that if you're a pretty boy, you kind of know that, and you can't really kind of recreate that if you aren't that.
Yeah.
Like you could, so some of the looks, for example, are that kind of mushroom haircut, kind of a poofy haircut, and the oversized, like hoodies and shirts, T-shirts, the accessories, like all the rings and
necklaces.
the necklaces and the what do they call
bracelets?
The bracelets.
Yeah.
You know, that type of thing. But again, I think you have to kind of like be already in, like have that kind of pretty boy genetics to then lean into
agree.
that.
Yes.
Because I think you might kind of come across as try hard if you didn't have that, but then you try to kind of mimic that style.
Right. So that's a really good point, because as we go through these, guys might be thinking, oh, I just need to pick one and just go all in.
Yeah.
But the thing is, no, you need to just take a step back and have the self-awareness to know like where you could fit in, and obviously also where you want to fit in.
Yeah.
And then go from there. So just taking that really logical, realistic approach.
Yeah. And so I think the last thing maybe to say about the kind of pretty boy look is that somebody also would have kind of very kind of feminine features. So that's why it would also be younger as well.
Yes. So here's my question. You know, like that strong jawline, would that be considered more masculine or feminine?
Definitely more masculine.
Okay. So they might have a more rounded.
It kind of depends, but it's kind of that overall look, like that Matt guy. What's his last name?
Rife.
Matt Rife guy.
Yeah.
He's got a good, really strong jawline, but he's also a pretty boy.
Okay, that's exactly who I was thinking about. That like he does have the strong jawline, but he does have like the big eyes.
Yeah.
That are blue, I think, or green, and he does like the facial expression
Emily
too sometimes. No, I'm not into pretty boys. I'm too old for that.
Anyways, so yeah.
On to the next.
But yeah, so watch our video when he comes out, and that's the pretty boy, and everybody I think knows. Actually, maybe the guys who are in the, that 25 to 35 range, maybe they're not as aware, but that's kind of who that is.
Yeah.
So.
Because now the opposite almost of that is somebody that is hyper masculine.
Yes.
So that's probably going to be somebody that is a little bit like larger bone structure, not overweight, but just broader.
Bigger frame.
Probably has a beard, some facial hair.
Yeah.
And probably a good amount of like head hair too. Wouldn't you say?
Nah, not
or
necessarily.
Or it could be bald. Yeah, no, you're right. I have seen it where it's like even just no hair there.
Just think of like The Rock would be a perfect example of that. You know, he's bald, but that's kind of that really wide jawline, but also a lot of muscle mass. And, that's where a lot of tattoos can come in sometimes, or some tattoos to kind of give you that badass look. But it's something where that's a specific niche. And so if you're a guy and you're like into weight training and things like that, it's something where you're probably going to want to lean more into that than that kind of look versus, definitely not trying to be a pretty boy, because that will backfire.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Just like if the pretty boy tried to be hyper masculine, that wouldn't work. And he was wearing like the extra small t-shirt and had a beard. And you know what I mean? Like a couple tattoos, but he weighs 120 pounds.
It wouldn't work.
It wouldn't work.
It's probably why this age difference is there too, because it takes so many years for a guy to really build up muscle mass. So I'm sure that like more of our 25 to 35-year-old viewers, more of them probably could fit into the hypermasculine group compared to pretty boys.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So that look is definitely appealing to certain demographics of women. So, real quickly, what we're saying is that you're going to have this pool of women that are going to be attracted to certain types of guys, and why they're attracted to those types of guys is because of the fact that these guys lean into that really hard, and it's going to be a smaller percentage, but they'll be more attracted to you. Does that make sense?
It does. And it brings to mind, I have a specific situation. I had a friend who she had an ex-boyfriend, and he was almost like this lumberjack. Like he was really big in frame. He did not have a beard while they were dating, or maybe he had just like a little bit of stubble, and that was it. And then she saw him months later, like after they had broken up, and he had grown this full-on beard. And she almost wanted to get back together with him.
Wow, yeah.
She thought that
made all the difference.
Yeah, she thought that he looked that much better. And it totally already fit him.
Yeah.
You know, like he was already that big structure guy, and he did have like already longer hair on his head. He even grew that out a little bit along with his beard. So it's sort of that combination.
Yeah, so he ended up kind of looking like that badass type.
Exactly.
But the other thing I would say for the hypermasculine is that, you know, if you're balding, then you really kind of have to have a beard to complement. Because what happens, I think, is if you don't have any facial hair and you're balding, it's something where people are going to kind of look at towards your head. But if you have that facial hair, and especially if it's, you know, like a little bit longer but really well groomed, like it's going to bring it down to your face. And the head part is just going to kind of be not as big a factor. Does that make sense?
It does make sense. I would also recommend for guys that are balding quite a bit to, if there's leftover hair like on the sides, to just get rid of it.
Oh yeah, you gotta. Yeah, absolutely. I would say. Yeah, I would say even if you're, you know, you're highly receding.
Yeah,
That can make a huge difference. You know, so for example, like there's different like factors as far as it's like a Norwood score it's called, and what they do is they look at your head and they'll say like kind of where you are. And I think, like, if I believe Norwood 1 is kind of where, like, a normalized hairline would be. And then, like, Norwood 2 is, like, it's receding a certain amount. But even if it's, like, at a 3 or a 4, where you still have hair on top of your head, but it's really thin, like, just get rid of it and grow a beard out. Like, that can make a huge difference in the way that you look.
I agree. Yeah. So another niche would be K-pop.
Yes.
How would you describe K-pop?
So, you know, I'm not into like K-pop at all,
neither.
except for, so like, I know that there's some, it's huge right now and it has been for a while, but it's really hard because I think K-pop in some ways intersects with the pretty boy a lot. But I think the difference is that, you know, K-pop comes from, I think it's
Asia, right?
Yeah, it's definitely Asia, but I think it's actually like South Korea is probably the majority of where they come from. But they have that kind of ultra pretty boy look.
Right.
And so, like, for Asian guys, I think that's definitely the way to go.
Yeah, because Asian guys usually struggle quite a bit
Yes,
in the dating market, right?
Absolutely. And so,
Yeah.
especially, I mean, the other thing is, too, you got to look at age. Because K-pop
Right.
is another thing where it's young.
Yeah.
So if you're a younger guy and you're Asian, that's probably the way to go, meaning kind of grow your hair out a little bit longer and, you know, kind of, again, embrace that kind of BTS, that's a band, I looked it up, but, band, and, you know, maybe kind of mimic some of their styles, that type of thing.
Yeah.
But I think, you know, for women go wild over these guys, the young women anyways. And so if you're kind of in that, I would say high school to like maybe like a year or two post college, and you know, you're an Asian guy, like that's something you should definitely try to lean into.
I think so too.
But you got to be thin though. Do you know? That's
what
I'm saying.
It's like thin and like really large clothes. It's right. Like it's almost similar to the pretty boy.
Yeah, it's a little bit different as far as, you know. Again, with I think it's more with the hair is different. And so it's more kind of feminized hair. It's not kind of that mushroom look as much.
Right.
And so it's a little bit longer. It's not super long, but it's, you know,
it's like long but spiky, right? Or like
more like flowy,
to the side.
You know,
flowy. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that's the only way I can kind of describe it. But yeah, I mean, people, especially in our audience, are probably more familiar with that than us, and you can easily look that up as far as kind of what that look is. But that's with certain demographics of guys. That's, I think, you know, kind of a way to go potentially.
I can totally see it. But I'd say like anything over 25 years of age,
no,
don't go with it.
Absolutely not.
You've aged
then
out.
You just look foolish then.
Yeah. Here's a big one. Bikers.
Yeah.
I feel like there's a lot of those in our area. So you hear about like the biker bars.
Yes.
They all tend to kind of hang out in these group settings, or they go for rides together. Different groups of bikers that always ride together.
Yeah.
So it's almost like a big social scene as well. So that's something, if you're interested or if you already have a motorcycle to get in with a social group like this.
Yeah. So maybe like swap out your crotch rocket for a Harley, and if you're really into that, that would be also, like you said, a good way to meet people, because there are these, I know that there are these kind of gangs out there. We're not telling people to join a biker gang like the Hells Angels or something like that. But there's just a lot of local gangs, biker clubs, I guess you would say.
Yeah.
There's guys who are dentists doing there.
Yeah.
But they kind of embrace that look. And that look to me is where usually you have pretty long hair, probably almost like as long as yours. And nowadays, usually the long beard as well. And also leather tattoos,
a leather jacket.
Yes. All that type of thing that really kind of fits that mold. Because if like I got on a Harley, that would look really ridiculous compared to the other guys.
Yeah.
Who's a dweeb, doing this. And so it's something that, again, we know it's a small percentage of guys who fit this, but if it is something, our advice is to kind of lean into that hard and make that, kind of your look.
Yeah, and I think the only stipulation I would say is that if the goal is, obviously, you're already interested in it. So if your goal is to get into the social scene in order to meet a woman, like you want to make sure that you actually also find that attractive in a woman.
Yeah.
Right? Because she's going to have a similar look. Like she's going to be wearing the leather.
Yeah.
She might have some tattoos,
Yeah.
maybe some piercings.
Yeah.
And probably not wearing like a ton of makeup or like done up with the hair.
Or she might be overly made up.
Or overly.
Yeah. But, that's the thing though, is that if you're that type of person, as far as what you feel comfortable presenting yourself, most likely you're probably going to be attracted to somebody
probably
that is in that same kind of category as well.
I would think so, and I would hope so for that to work.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, unless there was some outlier woman who just wasn't like that, who was into guys like that. But I would think that would be very slim.
The next one, I feel like this is going back to high school. The geeks.
Yeah.
The geek club. This is a good one, I think. Like this is one.
Actually, no, I gotta interrupt you real quick. So there's 3 categories of words that are used, but they're used differently. And I learned this, and it's nerd, geek, and dork.
So these are different groups?
They're different groups.
Okay, educate me, please.
Okay,
I don't know.
So a nerd is someone who is passionate about learning, being smart, academia. A geek is somebody who is passionate about some particular area of a subject, often obscure. And a dork is someone who has difficulty with common social expectations or interactions. So what we're kind of talking about is the kind of more kind of the nerd, I think, archetype, where some women really are into somebody that really kind of has that look about them and also is really smart, but they're really kind of focused on that kind of one area.
Because that's the difference, right? The nerd is probably really smart, very intelligent.
Yes.
Which is attractive in itself.
Exactly.
And then he can geek out about certain things, and it's almost just like, that's cute. Or if she shares it, obviously that's a common interest. So she might not even herself be a nerd. She might be more like a geek, if she's not as intelligent as him, but they have the common, like, they might both be into Harry Potter or Star Wars or something like that.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
And so, but if that's you, that's, another thing. Just own that and say, like, this is who I am.
Yeah.
So if you're on a dating profile or whatever, it's something where, you want to own that. And
I think guys are afraid of like the majority of women just like saying, "Oh no."
The majority of women probably will, but it doesn't matter. What you can't care about what the majority of women thinks. All you need is one.
That's the message, right? Because the thing is that the majority of women are going to say no,
They're going to say no regardless.
Anyways.
Exactly.
But I think they get it into their mind that like no, they need to do a broad net
Yeah.
so that they get that like maybe one captured in there.
Yeah, it's like almost like what remember how we spoke about how women are kind of all morphing into kind of looking the same because of
Yeah.
all the different cosmetic procedures. What the message we're giving to guys is to do the opposite of that, is to not, because the conventional wisdom would be, okay, just all try to be as Chad-like as possible, right?
Right.
But the reality is that is not going to work. And, that could work that has worked for women, because everybody's trying to look like Kim Kardashian.
Exactly, because what that does is that there's more focus on who looks best. Like if all the Chads, have the same kind of personality, they're into the same things that are very commonly liked, and they're not unique, they're not these niches. All you're doing then as a woman is like comparing one guy's face to another, one guy's body to another. I think women are used to that, and that's why they're so good at making themselves look really nice.
Yes.
But they're not. That's going to take years, I think, for guys, decades, honestly, for guys to focus on that. And I don't think it would be a good thing to focus on.
No.
Just purely looks.
Of course not. But I think it kind of goes hand in hand with kind of who you are as a person and how you're selling yourself to the world. Because let's be honest, that's all this is. It's salesmanship. It's saying the product is me, and I want to sell that. And so in order to do that, what you have to do is to niche down and get to the point where you are able to find a couple of people that are really into that.
Yeah.
And then kind of go with that versus trying to be that person that like women are doing and get that specific type of look that you want to kind of present to the world. So if you're this guy who's this nerd, own that and lean into it and make sure on your profile you have like the nerdiest stuff possible, like be at a Star Wars convention or whatever, if that's your thing. In the pictures. Because even if it's two women that match with you, for example, there's a good chance that that's going to be a lot better case for you rather than you say, oh, I'm embarrassed about this, so I'm going to just have the typical photos that everybody sees with your dog and your family and being at the park or posed. Because a lot of women say that the posed pictures are turnoffs.
Women are interesting, right? Like
they
get bored. I think with dating, and they get sick of it because they are seeing the same thing over and over and over. So you could really pique her interest if it's somebody that is also into that or that thinks that it's cool for you to be into something like that.
And we're not changing our advice as far as like taking professional photographs. It's just saying taking professional photographs, but doing it within that niche.
Yes.
Right?
Absolutely agree.
So you're seeing the best side of yourself, but you're also kind of leaning into, okay, who is this person and what are they about and what sets them apart?
The other niche that comes to mind is goth, right? This is something that, at least like growing up in high school, there was always the goth group, and they always hung out together. And there was actually kind of a 50-50 split between guys and girls. That was the interesting part.
Yeah.
But I think most people know this look, right? It's like kind of all wearing black, potentially wearing like some sort of black jewelry along with it, even going as far as like black lipstick for the girls.
Yeah.
Probably heavy on the mascara and eyeliner for the girls as well.
Yeah, for the guys a lot of times.
For the guys,
with the eyeliner.
Yeah.
Right, a lot of times. But yeah, that look and kind of the punk look. And it's interesting because like I knew a woman who was a patient of mine that was totally into the goth scene. And one of the things she said is that there was a lot of women there, but it was hard to meet men who were into
interesting.
that. So we're not saying that if you're not that to be that, but if you are into that to a certain degree, then why not lean into that like on a dating app or go to a goth bar or something like that? And because potentially there might be more women in that area.
You're going to be in high demand as the man in that group.
Potentially, sure.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, so it's something that if you are into that, the guys will kind of have typically kind of longer hair, kind of also, kind of have that mascara look. It's actually, it's you'd really have to be in the scene to differentiate emo goth and punk, I think, a lot of times.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
I can see that.
And so,
Yeah.
But it's interesting because where we record, there's a couple that lives near here that we see all the time that are both punks. Mm-hmm. And they're real punks, meaning the fact that they dress like that all the time.
Yeah. And I think about like punk rock. Like, I don't know if it's still around, but I'm sure
it's
in different
definitely.
areas,
Yeah.
there was this punk rock stage. So like small bands, like high school bands would go and play at it.
Yeah.
So I'm sure depending on the area, like there's something like that where there's just punk rock. And then of course everyone hanging out there is probably kind of in that scene.
Yes, exactly. But I think that there are definitely communities of people like this out there. It's just saying that, if that's something that's an interest of yours, why not try to lean into it? Because maybe you can meet somebody who's really cool that you connect with.
Yeah. Do you think a lot of people, like they get into it usually in high school, I feel like.
Yeah. That's
But then a lot
true.
of people like get out of it. So potentially, like even if you kind of got moved out of it, and you went off to college.
Yeah. I think you'd be surprised, though, because that
Yeah.
woman I know, for example, like by day, she's a banker. And so she's, she doesn't, like she covers up
Like,
all her tattoos
okay.
and things like that. And she doesn't have like heavy eyeliner on. She looks like a normie when she's at work. But when she goes out or when she's at home, she definitely is that person and wears those clothes when she's at, at the
Makes
grocery
sense.
store. Do you
It
know
makes
what I mean?
sense, yeah.
And that's kind of what I'm talking about. It's not saying like you transform to this person, that's who you are 24/7. But if you're going out to bars or clubs or you're, trying to go to a concert, for example, it's, kind of putting on that look or potentially on a dating app.
Yeah.
As far as, kind of saying like, this is what I do on the weekends.
Yeah. Well, I can see how a lot of people that might have been into it in high school, right? They go out into the real world and they are getting a job. So let's say for her, for example, was that banking job. And I could see a lot of people dropping that social scene and dropping the goth or punk look. But that's where, like maybe if you were into it in high school, you could bring that back into your life in the social scene.
Yes.
And like you're saying, it doesn't mean that you have to start dressing that way.
No, like
in your day-to-day
with all
life.
these, actually. Do you know what I
Yeah.
mean? If you have a day job that requires you to look a certain way, then that's fine. You have to kind of adhere to those standards. But on your free time, or then or whatever you put online, you can do what the hell you want to do.
Yeah, do as you
and,
please.
and yeah, do as you please, and you should. So, yeah,
Another very common one. I feel like this is a pretty big subgroup. Just people in general that love tattoos and piercings.
yes,
And we're kind of talking about probably more than like 3 tattoos. Because I feel like a lot of people out there have 1, 2,
Yeah.
maybe 3 tattoos, and you could look at them and not even be able to tell that
sure.
they're really
or
into
might not be
that.
able to see.
Exactly. But for people that, have like full sleeves
Yeah,
or even half sleeves of tattoos and they're really into it and they're already planning their next tattoo, like that is a very specific niche.
yes, absolutely. And I think that there's definitely women that are attracted to that look.
Yes.
And so that just kind of reminds me of this one guy who he's probably one of the leading scientists. He's out of Stanford. His name's Andrew Huberman. And he's been all over. Anyone can put him on YouTube. But he always wears when he goes on podcasts, full sleeve shirts. But he talks about the fact that he has 2 full sleeves of tattoos, but he doesn't want, when he's on a podcast, people to be staring at his arms and trying to look at his tattoos. But if he was, he's married, but if he wasn't, it's one of those things where he has said, like, I would definitely showcase that when it comes to trying to find somebody who's a mate. But when I'm talking about longevity, it's going to be distracting.
I can see
So,
that.
but it's something that, like, he's a guy you would never think if you saw him potentially that he would be into that, but he definitely is, and it works for him because he
Yeah.
also has that hyper masculine look along with that.
This niche, I think, is different too, in that I think that a lot of women that don't have a ton of tattoos can absolutely be attracted to that in a man. I do think that. And I don't know. What do you think?
Well,
it works the other way around?
I don't think it works the other way around.
I don't think so either.
But
You've talked about that.
But it's interesting. Yeah, we've talked about that. But I never really kind of knew that there was women that kind of liked the guys with that.
Yeah, because it's almost masculine in many ways, to have tattoos.
I guess it's been socialized to be that way.
I think so.
Do you know?
Yeah.
And so
women may not want to put it on themselves, like that amount of tattoos on themselves, because they view it as more masculine.
Okay.
But they see it on a man and they can be attracted to it.
Yeah, I can definitely see that for sure. Because I think it definitely started off kind of in the male community.
Yeah.
And then kind of branched off for females. But I remember when it started, like the person who started this was Tupac. And this is like the early 90s. And he was the guy who had all the tattoos on his body. He was probably the most famous rapper at the time. And I remember then you started seeing it in the NBA. And then you started seeing it in the NFL and different sports and things like that. And then by the time it became like the early 2000s, it started becoming more mainstream, where now it's to the point where, there's more people that have tattoos that don't.
I think that is also a difference in piercings to tattoos. I think tattoos are more mainstream. Piercings, not so much, except for like the typical ear piercings, of course, for women. But I don't know if the same goes for piercings. Like, I don't think that a woman that doesn't have a lot of piercings can look at a guy with like a ton of piercings. And I don't think they're attracted to that necessarily. And that probably...
There's a lot of projecting going on in this episode.
I know, right?
That's fine. No, but you do make a valid point.
Like, I really don't like, the guy with, spacers or whatever they are on the ears. Like, and if that's not something that she's into for herself.
Yeah.
Because I don't know how true this is, but I feel like that is more of something that started with women having piercings. So it's almost like the flip-flop, right? Yeah. Guys, tattoos, women, piercings. But of course, it's like interchanged, and some guys do both, and some women do both.
Yes.
But I don't think that a woman that doesn't have them can look at a guy and be like, ooh, yeah, that's masculine. I'm into that.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense. But if the woman's into it herself, there's a higher likelihood, that she would also be into that.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay. Makes sense.
I think so.
Yeah. But, again, this is something where what we're trying to say is if this is already something you are, lean into it and showcase it versus transform into it to get a girlfriend.
Exactly.
And that's foolish.
You're in a niche, Todd.
Yes, I am.
Did you know that? Let's talk about your niche.
Sure. So being a redhead is a niche, and it's something that it's interesting because if I look at my dating history, it's a small percentage of women that are into guys who are ginger, red hair, whatever you want to say, probably pretty small, but the women who are into it are into it. And so it's something where this would be the example of if you have that already, just try to be as basic as possible because you are in a niche. And so it's really trying to say, okay, I'm going to just kind of be as basic as possible and spread my word out as far as I can on social media or whatever, and just try to find that woman that they're really into that look.
Yeah, I can see that. This is probably the only one that we've talked about so far that is like purely genetic, right?
Yeah.
That like really, if you're born a redhead, you're already in that niche. And what you're saying is that you don't want to niche down too far into two groups.
No, because you're already like, I'm in a small enough group as it is of women who are attracted to me. So that's a niche in itself. If I were to, try to be hyper masculine, for example, potentially that probably would be my best bet, but honestly, I just don't have the frame for it. And so that's something that I think would be really important to just kind of say, I'm going to just be as attractive as I possibly can be and kind of let that work for me. Yeah.
I feel like, though, like, that is a good point, the hypermasculine. I could see, I think of Ginger Billy on TikTok. Like he's hyper masculine and he is a redhead. That's why he calls himself Ginger Billy.
Yeah.
So I could see that working. Maybe also like if you're a geek, right? Or nerd. Do you think that would be niching down too far?
I think it'd be niching down too far.
Okay.
Yeah. I think because it's something where, again, you're talking about, let's say it's 2 to 5% of women that would even be attracted to that look in the first place. And it's something too where, like the other thing, most people don't know this, but most redheaded guys are not attracted to redheaded women and vice versa.
Oh, that's interesting.
You know why? Because it's like we look too much like siblings. Because it's such a small percentage of people.
I could see that.
And so it's something that would just feel weird. Where, 2 blondes can get together any day and it's
That's
nothing.
so interesting. I didn't realize that, but it makes sense to me.
Yeah, exactly. Just because it's such a tiny percentage of the population. Actually, I think because of the gene pool, I think by like 2060, it's going to be extinct.
Wow. Another niche that probably is not so much relevant in our area, so it kind of does depend on where you live.
Yeah.
But it's the cowboy look. Mm-hmm. I've heard of this from a woman that we know personally, and I've heard it from other women that are just like, they love the cowboy boots, the cowboy hat, the plaid shirt, the shirt tucked in into a pair of jeans with the buckle.
With the Wranglers.
Like the whole look.
Yeah.
Right? Like he's a hard worker is I think what they think in their mind.
Yeah, absolutely.
But this is something really to consider if you live in that specific area.
Yeah, well, that could be, a big area. That could be pretty much anywhere. Well, first of all, if you live in a rural area, and that could be, we're in New York, and it's something that could be in rural New York that potentially could work.
It's true.
So I don't think it necessarily depends on the specific state you live or country you live, but, kind of where you live within that country. So, but in the United States, for example, like I would say, like pretty much anywhere west of the Mississippi, you're safe for sure. Or if you live in the East, and you're more kind of in that rural area.
Yeah, and I guess like there are country concerts, right? And I feel like that's when the cowboy boots come out.
Oh yeah,
especially
country
for
music
the girls.
is huge.
So that's a social scene. You get dressed up looking like a cowboy.
Yeah.
If you're into country music.
Well, and usually country music and cowboys, like obviously, they go hand in hand.
They do. Mm-hmm.
And so you're not hearing most guys who are cowboys like into hip hop. Do you know what I mean? It's not really a thing, but it's something where, and there's been kind of a resurgence. There's that show on, what is it, Amazon?
Amazon Prime.
Yeah, that's Yellowstone. That's this huge show right now, and that's all about cowboys.
Yeah.
And so these women are simping over these guys on the show.
Women love that. I forget his name, but he's like one of the main characters.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's one they claim that he has a dad bod.
Yes.
But you would say no, he doesn't.
Yeah, the woman's version of a dad bod he has.
Woman's version of a dad bod, for sure.
Like he's got a little bit of fat, but like he's pretty buff.
Exactly.
And a tough
he's
guy
got
type.
Muscle.
Yeah, for sure.
Yep.
But yeah, that's been a kind of big resurgence. So if you're if you live in Texas or something like that, but again, any kind of rural area, what? Why not lean into that kind of that look?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
That's kind of the looks aspect of things, and that's something where you're going to present yourself, when you're not working, unless you're a cowboy, onto the world, or if you're kind of on social media or a dating app. So kind of leaning into and there's many more. We just wanted to give some examples that kind of people fit into. But the second piece of that is going to be kind of what your lifestyle is. And that's something where I think if you niche down to that can potentially attract certain women as well.
Yeah.
Again, small percentage, but we're talking about anti-numbers game right now.
Right. And I think of these things as more of like a lifestyle that's entwined in your everyday life, right? This isn't just about like you intermittent fast and you don't eat breakfast every day. It's not like you go to the gym 4 times a week, 3 times a week. Like that's not as much of a niche.
Yes.
But things like being a vegan, that's pretty much entwined in your daily life, and that really impacts like where you eat, what
Yes.
you eat, what is in your fridge, how you cook. It impacts a lot.
And your worldview.
And your worldview.
So,
Absolutely.
So I would say, honestly, if any guy has even a propensity to move towards that way because they love animals or because, maybe they just don't like meat that much, I would say that is something to really highly consider, because the reality is that there's so many more women who are into veganism than there are guys. And so, and a woman typically does not want to date a guy who isn't into that lifestyle herself.
It would be hard to,
Yes.
especially if you get to the point where you're living together.
Exactly.
It's that's very difficult.
Because really diehard vegans, and I know that they have the stereotype sometimes of being critical or judgmental, that type of thing. But I think that there's a lot of women out there that I know a couple that are really sweet, nice people, and they're just very empathetic and they're very caring, and they've really kind of seen, kind of the terrible videos about, how factory farming is actually produced and things like that. And it's just disgusting to them. And so you're absolutely correct in the fact that they wouldn't even want to see meat products in the house, let alone eat them. So I guess our point is that, that's something where if you went on a Facebook group about veganism, it's going to be almost all women on there.
Most vegans are women. And you brought this up. I thought that it was a really good point, and really good almost strategy for guys that are open to it to maybe really dive into and join a group, even if you're not fully into it yet.
Yeah, exactly.
And you're just interested in learning about it. I mean, a woman that is into it would probably love to tell a guy more about
Absolutely.
it that's interested.
Yes.
She'll probably talk your ear off.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It's like inviting a Jehovah's Witness into your house.
Oh, yes.
They will tell you all about it, and they'll help you.
Yeah.
Get
Be
through that process.
Be sure first that
Yes.
you're really open to it.
Exactly. But the thing is, you could explore it, though, by just having conversations.
Yeah.
But it's something where I think you would find potentially a lot of women who are very empathetic and kind in that niche. And it's something that, it's definitely a huge lifestyle change, but maybe there's guys who, again, typically don't eat a lot of meat anyways. You know what I mean?
Right.
And so they're not having steaks every other night. It's something where they might have, chicken once in a while type of thing.
Yeah, like if you're the guy that's eating 4 steaks a week,
it's not for you.
This is going to be pushing your limit here.
Exactly.
It's not going to be for you. Exactly.
Yeah. And what we're saying, especially about something like this, is that if you have an open mind and you're already kind of interested in it, it's something that can, if you think about, okay, my dating opportunities are going to increase significantly more, and I'm already interested in it, why not explore it a little bit? You don't have to, dive deep into it right away. You can just talk to people.
Yeah. I mean, what this essentially does is it opens up a warm environment to you as well.
Yes.
And, the next one that comes to mind is religion, right? Like that, I feel like for people that are very religious, that's going to be their top one thing for a partner is to be of the same religion.
Yeah.
And willing to practice as they do.
Exactly.
And obviously, like typical going to church every Sunday, like that's kind of the social aspect. And possibly even volunteering at the church, another social aspect through the week. And so it really opens a door to a warm environment.
Exactly. And so, for example, let's say you're just kind of your garden variety Christian.
Yeah.
Maybe you say to yourself, okay, like I'm going to like find a specific church or especially one that has like a lot of social activities and kind of lean into that. You can and this is something where we don't even have to really kind of talk about, but it exists as far as like Mormonism, for example. Like those people only marry each other.
Right.
Do you know what I
they're
mean?
Super strict. Yeah.
Exactly. And so I'm not telling people to convert to Mormonism, but it's something where that's just an example of a community which is very interlocked. and agree with or disagree with it. For them, it works to some level, right?
It does, and
they get married at 19, have 10 kids, but it
does
works for them. Yeah,
probably don't end up divorced. I don't know if that's even allowed.
Well, I think it is, but it's so much. It's a huge community, and I've worked with a lot of people over the years, honestly, who are Mormon. And the one thing I'll say about Mormons that are really positive is that they're super nice people, and they really support each other within that community.
And that's huge, especially for families.
Exactly.
When you have that many children, especially within an individual family.
Yes.
Yeah.
But again, we're not saying convert to Mormonism, but I know women, for example, that have converted to Judaism because they met like this, Jewish guy that they're really into.
Yeah.
And they said, you know what, I kind of learned about it, and there was something about it that resonated with me, and then they kind of lean into it, and then they go through that process, and it's a lengthy process, but they convert to that.
Yeah.
And then, they kind of go down those steps.
I can see that, especially in the area that we are. There's a lot of Judaism. I do think that you make a good point with like the garden variety Christian, right? Because probably the majority of our listeners might have some sort of background in Christianity. Yeah. Just because that's the majority of the U.S.
Sure.
And most...
That in the Philippines. That's our second...
Oh, in the Philippines too.
Yeah. They're all Catholics over there.
Oh, yeah.
That's our second largest group right now.
Exactly.
Filipino men out there.
There you go.
Lean into your religion harder.
Yeah. And most people are not really leaned in to their religion right now, into Christianity. Like a lot of them, maybe they're going once or twice a year, maybe. They probably went more often as children, but it's like when they go off on their own, I think it's pretty normal that like through college, most people don't keep up with that, They might look at doing it and increasing, them going to church, like once they have a family.
Yeah.
So there's something to be said about doing that before you find your person. If you're trying to find your person, maybe that's not a top number one important thing to you for a partner to be a practicing Christian. But like you might as well open up that door and that niche if you have those beliefs and you're basically just adding in a social scene every Sunday.
Exactly.
I think you also want to find a young church, though.
Yeah.
Because there's some churches, like, you might go in on a Sunday.
Yeah.
And it's like
of older people.
All older people. Like, so don't be afraid to kind of try out some different ones.
Shop different churches. And I would say even people who maybe aren't particularly religious, there's like Universalist Church, which is not affiliated with any religion.
Yes.
But they kind of have the teachings.
Yeah.
And, kind of philosophy behind that. And that would be for more guys who are kind of looking for traditional women as well.
Yeah, those are growing, the non-denominational ones. And usually they have like live music. So it is really a younger scene typically in those types.
Exactly. And so, but that's another example of what we were talking about on one of our last episodes was getting out of the house and trying these different things and saying, does this resonate with me? Is this something that I enjoy to some degree?
Right. I think that we can talk about the next one is having strong political affiliations.
Yes, absolutely.
This is where I think it's challenging. Like if you're on the far right to match up with somebody on the far left.
Yes.
So
exactly.
if you're in one of those, like you're far right, far left, I think that you could lean into that niche.
Yes.
You could get more involved in your community. Obviously you're already passionate about your beliefs.
Yes.
So it's just getting involved and it's opening up that social scene.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's the thing, honestly, that the knock I have on people who with really strong political beliefs is that the best way to actually exhibit the fact that you really do hold these values strongly is to get involved. Yeah. Not just to talk about it on Facebook.
Ooh, good point.
Do you know what I mean? So like start at your local level and go to the young Democrats, the young Republicans, or whatever it is, and join every city is going to have, of a substantial size, is going to have these types of groups where you can get together and then they can talk about things and they can actually do volunteer work and get involved with projects and causes that you feel are important.
Absolutely. Yeah, you make a really good point that, you should actually take action if you truly believe in those things.
Exactly.
And not just talk.
Not just talk. Action, not words, right?
Right.
But that might give you an opportunity just to widen your social circle and potentially meet someone who is going to be in that same kind of camp.
Right.
No matter where you are on that spectrum.
Yeah. And you just never know. Like when you open up a warm environment, and let's say you start working with a group of people that are like-minded within that same political party, they have their people that they know, in any kind of gathering, they might be pulling those people in. And I would say like typically friends groups even kind of have that same political affiliation a lot of times.
Yeah.
And definitely families, right? So like, it might be the guy's sister that, he all of a sudden's like, wait, you're single? Oh, like my sister.
Yeah.
And families love it when like their siblings or their daughters or their sons can match up with somebody within the same political affiliation.
Absolutely.
Families love that.
Yes.
When they're like really left-sided or right-sided, at least.
Of course. And, with the kind of the state of the union right now, people kind of fall kind of in one of those two camps usually. Although there's a lot of people, I would say, in the middle as well.
I would say so too.
But if you do fall into kind of one of those camps, then, look up in your area kind of where you can get involved.
Absolutely.
And, this is a hill that I'll definitely die on, and I'm sure you would too. It's a small hill, but it's a hill, is that the warm environment is going to be the best place possible to meet someone.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And so the reality is that the more that you can kind of try to create these warm environments, the better chance you're going to have long term with connecting with someone versus a dating app or cold approach or game or any of that stuff.
Absolutely. Yeah, and you're more likely to find the women that are not on the dating apps, right?
Exactly.
Because we talk about how there's not that many women on dating apps.
Exactly, but they're 50% of the population, so they're there.
Exactly. Yeah. What about, speaking of hills, running uphill, running groups?
Yeah, I think when it comes to the fitness world, I think that there's a few different categories, and running is definitely one of them. And so, again, most cities, small or big, typically will have running stores that usually sponsor running groups, and usually they're free. And it's just they set a time and a place, and then people show up. And they're also a lot for almost every place in the West anyways. Typically there's a lot of races that people participate in, whether that just be a 5K or all the way up to an ultra marathon.
Yeah.
And so if you're into running, because there's people I've known that are into running, but like I don't get it because I'm a runner, that don't race. And it's something where, to me, that's what your training is for. Maybe because I'm so competitive, but I love to run, but I also love to be in that environment. And what you see if you go to races is the same people over and over again. And some races are really big. Like there can be thousands of people in them. Obviously, if you're talking about the Boston Marathon or something like that.
Right.
But that's for like elite runners. But I'm just talking about if you're in your local town or city, if they have a 5K fun run, just to, if you're into running, start doing these races.
I can see that. And I don't think a lot of people do that. Like, I think that a lot of people that go to the running events are like they're runners. It's entwined in their life.
Yes.
And I do think that because of how much time you have to dedicate to especially becoming that long distance runner.
Yeah.
Like even half marathon runner, it's so entwined in your day to day that it would be kind of nice to have somebody that is also into that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Or that you could run with, train with.
But it also is that, that similar lifestyle.
Exactly.
So,
yeah.
For example, like when I go on vacation somewhere, I always bring my running shoes because I love to run in different cities. And so that's something where if I'm with somebody, they're going to most likely do that with me and want to do that with me.
Right.
And that makes the experience greter for both of us.
That's a really good point. And it's like you're probably up earlier in the morning.
Oh, yeah. Because you want to.
You're doing that.
Yeah, because that's the first thing you want to do before the day gets started. And the temperatures, especially if you're in a warm climate, are going to be lower. Or, you do it in the evening or whatever. But it's something that, again, you can kind of be in that community.
And you're probably more likely to find somebody within your age range because typically, I know you're outside of this, but like typically, probably not anyone like older than 45 is doing a lot of running. Do you think that's
it definitely drops off for sure.
True, yeah. And probably not anyone super young either because they're into running like in college or
but
in
you'd
high
be surprised
school.
though. I think like even like, local races, you'll see a lot of college and high school guys.
Oh, yeah, the races, that makes sense. I guess I was
Yeah.
thinking more running groups.
Oh, okay. The running groups, yeah. That's probably more your kind of 25 to 45 age group. But there are some runners that are a little older than that. But if you're a guy and you're a little bit older, that's something that you can do. And, the great thing about these running groups is that they have different speed levels. So it's not like everybody's going out there, trying to get PRs every time. It's based upon kind of how fast you run or where your comfort level is. So that's definitely one. The other one that I thought of, which is big, is the CrossFit community.
Oh, CrossFit. Yes, that's a really good one.
Yes.
People that are into CrossFit are into CrossFit.
Yes.
Like they're going to no other gym.
Exactly.
Yeah, and I could see I don't know. What do you think the balance is between men and women, though? Because
There's probably
could
more
see
men
more
there.
men.
There's probably more men there, but there's
Yeah.
definitely a lot of women in CrossFit as
Yeah.
well. Do you know what I mean? And
Yeah.
so it's something that, again, you don't have to get all the women. You just have to kind of meet one, or maybe you meet that woman and she's got a friend. But the thing about what I do, I've never done CrossFit specifically. I just regularly weight train, but I've learned a lot about it. And what's pretty interesting is that they have it's called the WOD, WOD, the workout of the day. And everybody kind of does that at certain CrossFit gyms. So for example, it's kind of a built-in community because and it's not everybody who's doing that, but you have the option of doing that. And so if you're doing that, that's something you can really relate to somebody because they're kind of going through that same kind of pain.
I can see
you.
that. I think that they do a really good job at having it really be a community too. Like they
For
actually
sure.
support each other and they'll cheer each other on.
Yeah, it's almost
even.
cult-like.
It
to a
is.
certain degree.
It is. But that's why people love it.
Yeah.
And that's why people, like, it works for them because that's a huge motivator to even show up to where you're working out, is to feel like you're part of something and that they would be missing you if you weren't there.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's a huge
how
one.
about joining a cult?
Yeah, no. We are not recommending that.
There's a lot of available women. They're young.
Probably.
Yeah.
Probably. Well,
let's see.
CrossFit makes me also think of like people that are into Tough Mudders or the
yeah.
Spartan races. Like I think that's pretty specific too.
Yes, exactly. And so there's a lot of people who are into that. They will travel to do that. So that's something where typically they're pretty regional. So like not every city is going to have a Spartan race or a Tough Mudder. So they might have like one for all of like Western New York, for example. But it's something that if they have one for Western New York, but they also have one for, central Massachusetts, then you may end up, seeing kind of the same people as well. And so, again, kind of putting yourself out there and doing something that maybe you wouldn't have done. Let's say you exercise on a regular basis. I mean, that's something we've always preached on this channel is to exercise. Why not take it to the next level and try some of these races?
Yeah.
Because even if you don't meet a woman there, let's say you meet a couple of other guys there and they have a social circle, and that potentially could be something that you can enter into.
That's really what it's all about. It's about widening the warm environments.
Exactly.
And especially if you're already into it, you're literally just putting in that social aspect into it, which I understand. Like a lot of people have a hard time with even the idea of that right now because of the events of the world. And I think just how we naturally are now, stuck to our phones rather than actually talking face to face to people. But you gotta be willing to go through some discomfort, and you don't have to make huge leaps. Like you can. I'm pretty sure there's even training groups for Tough Mudders. You can get into a training group first, or get on a Facebook group and ask some people about it.
Yes.
And people that are already into it and that love it, or that are like coaches in it, they will love to talk to you about it.
Exactly.
And then see if, you want to continue down that path. That's also not just something that like you've made a decision on and you have to stick to now.
No.
It's just be open to it.
Yeah, be open to it and check it out. Just like all the things that we've spoken about thus far, it's not saying that you have to rush into one of these lifestyles and then adopt it. It's saying explore it. Maybe it's something that you really never thought of, but it has the opportunity to widen the warm environments and introduce you to a whole new group of people that you never would have met before.
I think we'll be really interested to hear from our audience. First of all, I want to know if any of them have thought of other niches that like we haven't.
Yeah.
Because that would be interesting to see.
Absolutely.
And then if like they themselves are in that niche and if they have found their significant other potentially or have tried to find a significant other within that niche.
Yes.
And how that's gone.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Awesome. Guys, if you really enjoyed this video, please remember to subscribe and watch the next video.